Welcome to StarTalks powered by Advotalks. And today we have with us our esteemed guest, Miss Vanessa, who is an international financial operations expert based at Brazil. Graduated in law and pursued postgraduate program in law from Metropolitan University Center of Sao Paulo. She has been looking into areas of contracts, corporate law, compliance matters, including LGPD, which is the General Data Protection Law in Brazil. With around 20 years of experience, she was responsible for diverse demands, especially serving the agribusiness area and its administrative and judicial procedures. She worked in international disputes. Today, we would like to spend time with her to understand on the topic international financial operations and data protection laws in Brazil. I should admit that I'm quite excited to host her. With that, I warmly welcome her to our talk show, Star Talks, powered by Advotalks.
Pretty much overwhelmed with this introduction, and thanks to the forum of Advotalks for asking me and inviting me as a guest speaker. I would be quite happy to help you out with the understanding that you are looking for around the international financial operations and data protection law in Brazil. I would like to add that, considering especially that Brazil and India are increasingly strategic partners with a great commitment to promote the economic growth, I strongly believe that expanding the legal knowledge for both countries is also a way to bring the countries even closer together.
We totally agree with you, Vanessa, and we are looking forward for this great conversation. So let me start with trying to understand a bit on, how you have developed the interest towards the international financial operations, as well as the diverse areas like the data protection area, and then a little bit on the judicial procedures involved in the agribusiness areas. Can you just suggest our viewers?
Yeah, when we're talking about financial operations and the company in financial operations with bank, in addition to the obligation of confidentiality, it is mandatory to have a clause that let it clear that in the event that any information that is provided to the bank, which includes but not limited to any data or personal data, and we read personal data as defined in our data protection law, which is number 13709. The company consents to the bank processing such data, provided that the bank complies with this law. And the following amendment for a precise purpose. This is the key. For example, for the purpose of providing services to the company regarding a loan agreement of 100 million reais, mentioning the precise purpose, the bank will not be authorized to use the disclosed information for other operation. Okay.
Right.
Right.
So that's a wide area that you have been looking into. So how did you draw into the data protection area, Vanessa?
It's necessary to include these and to write a wording that blinds the not blind to have a security to the company.
Oh, so now I wanted to understand a bit on, how does the international financial operations differ from the domestic financial operations as such? And I was also trying to understand the role of the I.F.C, that is International Financial Corporation, in the international financial operations.
Yeah, the International Finance Corporation, I.F.C, has the aim of boosting productivity, taking care of the environment, and also generating jobs and income in regions where the economy is not developed as it should be. I.F.C seeks to help the development of the private sector as investing directly in companies through loans with competitive interest rates. When I.F.C's investment law is for industry, where I worked for many years, its team carries out a study of the entire production chain, including locations where the factories are located, facilities, and among others. And together with the company that will receive the funds, they drawn up an action plan for the environmental and social areas. This action plan lists all the improvements that should be implemented in the industry with the loan funds, like effluent treatment, water treatment, social programs, and etc. These improvements essentially focus on processes that avoid or reduces problems from environmental and also the social areas. This is why I.F.C works.
Great to understand about the wide areas that is kind of being addressed with I.F.C, as you suggested, on multiple action plans and the funds, as you mentioned, like these are like really long funds, and like the fundamental issues like the water treatments and some more social problems are being kind of attended by the I.F.C. And moving forward, there is a lot of expertise that I've been looking after your profile to understand that you have been into assignments of merger and acquisition. So can you let our audience know how these contracts work, and how are the proposals evaluated, like especially the contracts getting executed and the covenants, and about the taxation part? Maybe we wanted to know the key aspects in an M&A evaluation and the challenges involved in the same.
Yeah, a merger occurs when two companies come together to form a new organization, and while an acquisition occurs, it occurs when one company buys another one. In general, companies carry out an M&A operation to boost their growth, increase competitiveness, and reposition their brand. This is the main aspect that M&A is in place. Due diligence, legal feasibility, studies about corporate reorganization after the M&A is in place are very important stages in this process. The fact is that it's common for the payment of the acquisition of this asset. It's common to carry out a long-term financial operation, to use the funds to acquire the asset. These financial operations used to have covenants that are heavy covenants, but with regard to covenants, we can essentially mention that we have affirmative, negative, and financial covenants. Affirmative covenants in particular are related to in a regular basis present balance sheets. This makes the bank looks for the financial temperature that the company is. Negative covenants, the main point is related to factors to be avoided while the financing is in force. Examples are not change the company's control, not change the corporate purpose, not use the fund raised for another purpose, not lose the authorization to operations, and etc. Financial covenant is the most important one. It indicated the maximum indebtedness allowed to the company. This calculation takes into account financial indicators. These financial indicators are represented by net debt that indicates the level of indebtedness, and a net financial expense that indicates a payment capacity. If they are not compliant with, the bank can declare default and demand early payment of the installments. I think that's very important also to talk about the taxation part. About tax, Brazil has a very complex legislation, and taxes are very high here. When we are working on an M&A, the percentage I think that the first part that we look for is the percentage on capital gain, which is the profit made on the sale of these assets. So this percentage is too high. Currently, it can be from 15 to 22% on the amount of the gain. So that's why it's extremely important to make it clear at the shareholder purchase agreement that the seller is responsible for paying this tax, even if the local legislation determines that the tax must be paid by the buyer. This clause is important when the asset is being purchased, is located in another country, and therefore other legislation maybe applies.
Thanks a lot for giving that wide application of the concepts on the covenants and the financial as well as affirmative kind of concepts that you have mentioned. And I'm quite confident that a lot of concepts that you've kind of come up, that these are like the tips for the professionals to understand how to kind of get into the assignments of a merger acquisition, especially when you said about the early payments and net financial expenses and other stuff. And thanks for bringing the taxation part through the experience that you have in Brazil. Okay, next we will just try to understand on how has it been on the agribusiness area in Brazil? Like, what were the challenges that are involved, and how do you connect with the implications of environmental compliance with your experience, Vanessa?
Brazilian environmental laws provide for an objective liability for damage caused to the environmental, which means that anyone who indirectly contributes to the damage is equally responsible with the one that caused directly the environmental damage. They are jointly and severally liable for the obligation to repair it in full. That's very important to know about Brazilian environmental law. A simple example that we could have here is like planting on a leased land. If there is an environmental damage, depending on the scale of the problem, the environmental problem, the owner of the area and the tenant would be also responsible for repairing it and even for paying fines. And the fines are very heavy here in Brazil also regarding environmental. For this reason, it's very important that contracts contain declarations and compliance obligations to preserve the environment, that the rural properties are in good standing with the environmental agencies. We have a lot of years in federal, statewide, and municipal spheres here, obtaining license permits, operational authorization, paying regular taxes. There are a lot of them. Keeping records, register, and describe very expressively that all these obligations are owners' obligations, trying to avoid responsibility for the company, but sometimes it's not possible. Depends on the evidence that we have.
So that means there is a wide implication that the Brazilian government has on the environmental law. There are a lot of license procedures, and then there is a huge taxation involved in that. As you also have mentioned that in some of the instances, the owners of the areas are also kind of made liable. So that strictly shows how serious the statute is looking forward to cut down such kind of environmental aspects in the form of damages. And I think like the role of environmental agencies that you have mentioned is also very key. That is what we understand. So Vanessa, moving on to the last question, we wanted to understand a bit on the data protection laws side as well. Um, how they have evolved over a period of time in Brazil, and what are the key provisions of the general data protection law in Brazil that is generally referred to as LGPD, Vanessa?
Yeah, I love the sport. I love LGPD, and we keep learning a lot here in Brazil. We have always new, and this law is getting better and better. The LGPD here in Brazil, the data protection law, is a regulatory framework in Brazil that aims to guarantee the privacy and the security in personal information. The law establishes clear guidelines on how organizations should collect, store, process, and share personal data, whether from customers, from employees, or partners. In technical terms, the LGPD is legislation that imposes a series of obligations and responsibility on companies with regard to the protection of personal data, and also fines, heavy fines. It could be until 50 million reais per infraction in event of non-compliance. With regard with LGPD, people have more control over their information, and companies are encouraged to adopt security measures and good practice to mitigate the risks of leak and misuse this data. I think that some key aspects of the LGPD that emphasize here the importance of a strategic and responsible approach of the processing of personal data are: we need to define the concept of personal data according to LGPD, and this includes personal data. It is considering any information that directly or indirectly identifies a living individual. So you can consider all kinds of data: ID, name, gender, date of place, place of birth, phone number, payment history, consumption habits, religion, IP, the Internet Protocol, address, and cookies, among a lot of others. We have also a figure that data protection officer. This person works to ensure that the organization comply with the global data privacy regulations, setting the standard and protecting user information through ethical practice and the standards. There are, I think four more important things that we need to pay very attention to avoid fines, non-compliance. We are talking about consent. In other words, the citizen consent is the base on which personal data that can be processed. You remember that we talked about in the first question that we need to have an authorization. We need to have a consent to use the data that we deliver to the bank, for example. So the second and third one, I think they are together, is the purpose. That purpose and need that we also talked about in the first question. Transparency with the owners of the data will be demanded and are demanded, with the requirement to inform citizens or companies in advance of the purpose and necessity of the request of their personal data. The last one that is very, very important here in Brazil, it's gaining more and more power, is the National Authority for the Protection Personal Data, which is ANPD. This organization is in charge of not overseeing the companies, but also penalizing non-compliance with the LGPD law. So I think that companies, personal data managers, now required to manage risks and failures with duties such as drafting governance rules, compliance with the whole obligation of this law. They are trying to adopting preventive security measure before happens some leak or misuse. They are trying to make good practice, looking for certifications also on the market. This is very important, because when we're talking about due diligence in M&A, LGPD is one of the part that we look for. It is there is a lot of lawsuits or not. This is something that we consider also, and for to sum up and the list, I think that all the maximum transparency and the responsibility to notify the ANPD and the individuals affected in the event of data leaked. This is very important for the ANPD when they are looking for if they are going to penalize or not. if they understand that everything was done, that the company tried everything, it was all out of control, it happened like a force major, maybe the company is not penalized, but we need to have uh, um, an evidence proof that this was done by the company.
So that's a kind of wide aspects of what all can become the personal data, like as you mentioned, like the name itself, it starts with the name, and then anything like address where we reside, and maybe the religion, everything can become the personal data. And there is a quite a requirement that the governments come up with stringent laws to especially when the transactions are actually happening across the globe. It calls up for really a global regulation kind of a statute that is required. Though they are there,
Yeah.
the as you mentioned, the local jurisdiction also should be kind of having that particular intent towards controlling the personal data leakages, like you said, the data leak aspects. And thanks for bringing about the National Authority of Personal Data Protection. I think like the key role of the authority is going to increase day by day with the level of extent that we are kind of spending the time on the internet, and then talking to multiple websites, and a lot of other activities that we keep on do. So the human community, the citizen community, I think like they are looking forward from the perspective of the authority to bring more and more control and supervision. And also thanks for bringing the data protection officer who would be responsible. And I mean like when the
Yeah.
statute is actually mentioning, I think that's where we can get more of a clarity on the operations from that perspective. So thanks a lot for bringing these aspects of the LGPD. Do you want to give more suggestions for the viewers, anything on the international financial operations or the judicial procedures that are in the agribusiness, Vanessa, to close?
I would like first of all, I'd like to thank you a lot to discuss about these two issues that these two themes that I love too. That's why I work for a lot of years. And I think that financial operations, especially the international ones, we must be very aware, and we need to know the niche of business that we are talking about, that we are going to work with, and we need to know a lot the company, because when we are making the word of the clauses, if you put some clause that is not is not like block some things that the company could do, or there is the history of the company, and maybe with a clause you block them, you block the company, you let the company, you can put an operation in risk. So this is very important to know a lot of the business and a lot of the company when you are talking about a financial contract. And regarding data protection law, here in Brazil, we have more than ever, like you said, a very importance here. We are working on to find more programs, more ways to audit and to avoid this kind of things, because in this digital world that we are living, it's very necessary to try to avoid, yes, to make things before this happening, the incident happens, even if the company has no uh, it's not company's fault, but it's better not happen, because the individuals have no, we can blame the individuals for release their information, because they have to go ahead with some operation, with something that is important to them. So I think that is this, and I thank you very much. It's quite positive discussions. I hope I was able to address the queries that you have raised on the international financial operation, on data protection laws, and I thank the teams of Advotalks that were very, very nice to me, and I like it a lot. The serious way that you work with uh, about the law, and for calling me out for here to talk on this.
Thanks for your compliments, Vanessa. And that brings us to the end of this great, insightful conversation. And thanks for helping us and our audience understand the various aspects of international financial operations and the data protection laws. We appreciate your taking time for this, and thanks a lot again. We look forward. We work with you in in a next episode with more
Yeah,
content. Yeah.
it would be a pleasure.
Okay. So that's about the today's episode with Vanessa, which brings a lot of insights on the international financial operations and the data protection laws. We hope this conversation was knowledgeable. For more updates and information on legal concepts, please visit our website advotalks.com, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel Advotalks.